Welcome back to the ECL online training series and lesson 10, qualifications and actions. Now the process of organizing your ECL definitions rely on two important concepts. Number one, definitions that you want to reuse in other ECL files must be exported. And those files that need to use those other definitions need to explicitly import them. And number two, qualification is the naming convention that we use to differentiate one exported ECL definition in one folder from another. Now on this slide, exported definitions in other folders and imported in your target file folders are available for use when qualified by the folder name. The first example on the top is doing an explicit import of a folder name called companies. So once we import the folder called companies, any definition in that folder can now be used in your target folder. So we have Florida Companies is defined as companies dot file underscore company, and so it is implied here that the definition called file underscore company is already exported. If not, the compiler will complain and tell you so. Now, how about definitions that are in your own folder and you've got a new ECL file with a new definition, but you want to reference a definition in another file that's in the same folder? Well, there's a syntax that we use in ECL called $. The import of the $sign will automatically import all of your exported definitions that are located in your current folder. So instead of explicitly referencing the companies folder, if I have Florida Companies in the same folder as file underscore company, then I only need to reference the $sign dot syntax instead of the full name of the folder. The last usage here, input star from companies, completely removes the ability to qualify or the need to qualify, and the development team does not recommend its use and will probably phase that out in the near future. So the third example here was just shown here. You might see some legacy code that uses this, but the usage, again, is not recommended. Now, in addition to definition qualification, another important qualification in ECL involves the scope of your actual data. This is interesting. The data field qualification shows you that fields within data sets are qualified by prepending the dataset or record set name. For example, in this function called, or this definition called young, that's calling an ECL function, age of, which is the function, is passing a parameter called date of birth. Well, this function age of, used in this context and scope, has no idea where the date of birth is located, so we must fully qualify it with the record set name, and in this example we're using people. Now, when a field name is in line with a data set or record set field, qualification is not needed when those data set and record set fields come into scope. For example, here we have a definition called young people, and it's defined as the people record set using the date of birth and index into the date of birth greater than 1972-11. So in this example, the date of birth doesn't need to be qualified here because it is used to filter the data set to which it belongs. Let's conclude this lesson with another topic that is somewhat related to qualification: the role of actions when used with definitions. And as a definition, we have three important rules. Number one, actions in ECL instigate something in our cluster that we call work units. Definitions by themselves do not. So we have a physical action ECL statement called output, and this will instigate a work unit. Now also, though, the use of just people itself being a record set definition, the compiler will be smart enough to detect that there is an implicit action here and will return the records of people if you just use it implicitly as shown. Number two, actions can be also ECL definitions. Now the reason for that is we have maybe multiple actions that need to be performed in an ECL job, and those actions might have a specific sequence. So we have some special statements called sequential and parallel, which allows you to explicitly control how actions are executed. So in order to do that, in order to combine actions in a single statement, we can define an action through use of an ECL definition. So number 3, the rule that functions can return scalar values can also act as actions, but again, the definitions that reference those scalar functions cannot. So in summary, anything that's a definition normally will not implement or execute a work unit. The compiler may even complain that you have not specified an action in your ECL file. But then explicit actions and some implicit actions always instigate work units. So that concludes this lesson on qualifications and actions. Stay tuned for lesson 11, which discusses ECL operators and expressions. Thanks for watching.